You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There is a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for the week of May 30th, 2025. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where the Bulwark Kids were in Chicago this week, up in my old stomping grounds, and they didn't even invite me. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
So unfair.
I know. I can kind of understand why, because when they started in with their, since 2016, we were right all along, and nobody listened, and they called us all crackpots, and they did that song and dance. I'd be the buzz-killing asshole who would stand up and yell, yeah, what about before 2016, asshole? What about all of us who've been right all along for decades, who you all didn't listen to, who you all called crackpots? And frankly, nobody wants to see that. So
don't tase him, bros.
Yeah. Adam Kinzinger would have been up my ass with a taser immediately, bringing him down. So
today we're going to do a little more No Fair Remembering stuff, and this is where we're going today. Once again, we boldly venture into that place where others fear to tread. It's back to the before time to explain how we got to where we are.
Ooh.
This time, the year is 2011. It was a magical time.
Some of you might remember that between 2006 and 2011, The Atlantic used to run leftover Andrew Sullivan columns under the heading of his now-defunct blog, The Daily Dish. Now, Sullivan was god-awful back then, but he had not yet sunk to the level of a bitter has-been phrenologist begging for scraps from Bill Maher, which is where he resides now. And occasionally, Sullivan would outsource his column writing duties to one of his protégés. So this one, entitled Understanding the Implications, Continued, is by Connor Friedersdorf. But, before diving into that article, we need to set the mood. We need to tell you what's going on. It's important to understand the context in which it was written. Specifically, do you remember what the hell was going on in American politics in 2011 that might have, prompted young Connor to write what he wrote? And for that, we turn to CNN, April 27th, 2011. The headline, The Birther Movement, Immune to Facts?
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that's what that was about. That's what was happening back then. The fucking birthers.
So, quote, this is from that CNN article. Can the birthers ever be convinced that Barack Obama was born in America and is eligible to serve as president? Class, even back in 2011, I could answer that question.
I could too.
Yeah.
We knew.
But the article says probably not, according to one prominent psychology professor and other political observers. Since Obama launched his bid for the White House, a sizable minority of Americans has expressed strong doubts as whether he was actually born in the United States. Over the past few years, the allegation that he was born overseas, in Kenya or perhaps Indonesia, has taken on a life of its own, despite a mountain of evidence to the contrary. A recent CNN Opinion Research Corps poll showed that roughly 25% of Americans, including over 40% of Republicans, believe Obama was definitely or probably not born in the United States. Earlier this week, CNN released the results of its own investigation, and I love this part, Driftglass, into the controversy.
Yeah, that's our word for 2025. That is our
controversial. Say controversial one more goddamn time, CNN.
Mm-hmm.
The controversy. Documents and statements from numerous public officials and childhood friends made clear that the president was born in Hawaii on August 4th, 1961. On Wednesday, Obama himself addressed the issue, pleading for an end to the distractions of sideshows and carnival barkers, unquote.
Yeah. And I would like to mention that this is why I would not be invited to the Bulwark's little party, because I would stand up and say, back in 2011, before Trump first showed up, 40% of your party were idiots who believed crazy racist lies. Why were you cool with that? Why were you okay with that? And the answer again would be a taser, and I'd be escorted off stage in a semi-comatose state. So, but in the previous paragraph that my lovely wife read, note the word pleading. Obama was desperate to get on with the business of governing, you might recall, governing the country, so he pleaded for an end to the distractions as if he were dealing, with reasonable people acting in good faith. But he wasn't. He was dealing with Republican politicians and a conservative media which was only interested in obstructing and crippling him at any cost, which they said out loud repeatedly. And you couldn't miss it. It was all over everywhere. There were articles written about it at the time. And don't forget the legacy media, which only cared about the entertainment value of the Republican freak show. So, yeah, falling on deaf ears. And as a fun thought experiment, we think you should try to imagine a world in which, instead of trying to deal with Republicans who are out to destroy him as a mature adult, what if Barack Obama had spent weeks and weeks blazing away on Twitter like this? This goes out to the Republican scum that spent the 8 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical right minds who allowed this country to be very nearly destroyed by insanity that only a stupid and very incompetent president would approve, and through judges who are on a mission to turn murderers, drug dealers, rapists, gang members, and release prisoners loose on our country so they can rob, murder, and rape again, all protected by these USA-hating judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick and very dangerous for our country. Hopefully, the United States Supreme Court and other good and compassionate judges throughout the land will save us from the decisions of these monsters who want our country to go to hell. But fear not, we have made great progress over the last 2 years, and America will soon be safe and great again.
Yeah, that would be an interesting Obama tweet.
Yeah, and that was just a very lightly edited version of the garbage that the President of the United States tweets out every fucking day. So
on Truth Social, absolutely,
on
every
Truth
day.
Social. And this is where the asymmetry between the two parties has become unmanageable. It is simply too stupid and crazy to ignore that Barack Obama was attacked by racist lunatics who told incredibly outrageous lies about him for trying to govern the country as a responsible adult. Now, responsible adults are being attacked by the president, the Republican president of the United States, with crazy, deranged, unhinged, lunatic lies. As you can see, if you put these two halves together, the problem is entirely one party. It's entirely the Republican base who put this lunatic back in office. And again, I would ask our Bulwark friends, where the fuck were you when they were worshiping at the altar of Rush Limbaugh, when they were paying attention to Hannity, when this was being created, when this monster was being built in a lab? You were busy trying to get these people fucking elected and calling us crazy and calling us crap.
Cashing in on it.
Yep.
Cashing in on this same audience. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I wonder if the 2028 presidential candidate shouldn't just go out and do that. Whatever Trump tweets out or puts on Truth Social, just change the parties and type it in all caps and put it out there.
Well, you and I
and make the media deal with it.
You and I chatted about this. I mean, just for as an experiment, whenever any reporter asks the 2028 candidate a question that they don't want to answer, that isn't a complete softball, go the fuck after them. Go after the jugular. This is why you're stupid, and you're a terrible journalist, and your company should be run out of business. And when I'm president, I'm going to investigate why CNN isn't in prison now. Just try that. And then when they get all weird and hair on fire, like, dude, you sat and let this guy piss in your face for basically 10 years.
And 14 years, yeah.
And did not a guy, and you were worried about Joe Biden's age. And every headline was filed down. Usain washed this son of a bitch. So, but coming out of my mouth, it's outrageous. Why is that? What's wrong with you? And once you have the megaphone, it's time to really start screaming at the media for failing this country and promising really dire consequences to them for fucking us over, because they are at this point just fucking collaborators.
The corporation that owns you is in trouble because they have failed to live up to the standards of the First Amendment. Yeah. And they have not earned their First Amendment protections.
No. Put them in jail.
As a corporation. They're a big corporation. They are not a news organization. Yeah. Yeah.
And go after the judges. Judges try to step in to protect CNN's First Amendment rights. These crazy
Go after the Fifth Circuit big time.
These judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick and very dangerous to our country. You mean those judges? Just put on a Trump mask and see how they like it.
Yeah.
See how they like it when the only adult in the room is no longer somebody you can shit on and just rely on to clean up after the mess you make, but is coming after you using exactly the same sword that you've been just willing to ignore for, going back 30 years, really.
Yeah.
Anyway.
For access.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So getting back to CNN, back in the before time again,
right.
April of 2011. Remember, this is 5 years before Donald Trump gets elected president. Mm-hmm. He's not a nominee or a leader or anything.
He's the leader of the birther movement. He's a birther, yep.
He's a birther. CNN, quote, the president, meaning President Obama, yielded to demands from his critics that he release his long-form birth certificate, filing a special legal request with Hawaiian authorities to release a document that is no longer used for official purposes and ordinarily remains buried in the basement archives of the state health department. Obama's 2008 release of the more common live birth certification, a short computer-generated form typically used for documentation purposes, did little to silence the chorus of skeptics. It remains to be seen whether Wednesday's release will be received any differently, but the early reaction wasn't exactly positive.
We could have told you
because all the money is in birtherism.
Right.
That's unquote. You might remember all of that, but do you remember this part? Quote, one of the main websites pushing the birther claims, birthers.org, declared that, quote, forgery or not, we can debate the true meaning of a natural-born citizen, unquote.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
They were always going to come after birthright citizenship. And who gets to be a citizen and who doesn't, according to the plain text of the Constitution.
Yep. This was in the works a long time ago. And now back to the
racism.
Yeah, it's fucking racism.
Period.
And now back to the article, quote, the U.S. Constitution says only natural-born citizens can become president, a vague clause that some members of the birther movement contend disqualifies Obama if he was born outside the United States, which is bullshit. Joseph Farah, editor-in-chief of the conservative website worldnetdaily.com, oh, Jesus Christ. Remember how big they were back then? Said that we know Obama's father was a Kenyan citizen and that he would therefore confer Kenyan or UK citizenship on his son, which would at best make him a dual citizen. Dual citizenship, Farah asserted, is not what the founders had in mind, because he can read the mind of dead people, when they coined the phrase natural-born citizen. Sharon Guthrie, the legislative director for a Texas state representative backing the bill requiring proof of citizenship for presidential ballot access, told the website Slate.com that she was still suspicious. What they produced today still says certificate of live birth across the top, she said. We want to see a birth certificate. The one that we have says birth certificate is from Mombasa, Kenya, with his footprint on it. He has still not produced an American birth certificate, unquote. Now, here's a very easy open book question for you. Does anyone remember who the king of the birthers was in 2011?
Our audience does. Yeah.
It was President Soft Taco.
President Soft Taco.
Who these assholes...
Don't forget, TACO stands for Trump always chickens out.
Always chickens out. These assholes nominated him enthusiastically, pushed him ahead of 16 other candidates, and then elected him, then nominated again, and voted for him again, and then nominated him a third time, and elected him a second time. So these people... Are you allowed
to have a first lady that's not a natural-born citizen?
I don't know.
Anyway.
I'm not aware of
Back
any
to
rules.
Friedersdorf in the Atlantic in February 2011. Quote, a reader writes, because that's a good way to start something, right?
Sure.
It is. It's a writerly, way to do things. Okay, a reader writes, quote, Connor, I wish I had the same confidence you do that the conservative media elite are ironically detached from Limbaugh. I think it's likely that some of them are more detached than they let on and are constrained about saying so because staying resolutely pro-Limbaugh and pro-Hannity and pro-Levin, etc., is perceived by them as necessary for business, whether that business is electing Republicans or keeping conservative opinion magazines viable. Opinion magazines are not gold mines, unquote. And Connor then replies, I can vouch for the fact that some of these people are far more skeptical about talk radio hosts in private. But the reader is right that others are writing in earnest. I can think of at least 2 people who are bona fide true believers. This I know from personal experience and are not being the least bit cynical. It really is hard to overstate the extent to which even intelligent members of the conservative elite have bought into the basic right-wing ideological narrative. If the only reasons for the failure of the right's ideas are A, media bias, B, liberal evil, and C, a failure of Republicans to be sufficiently conservative, with conservative defined in a narrow, rigid, archaic way, then there is no need to re-examine oneself or movement conservatism's priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Conservatism cannot fail. Conservatism can only be failed. Unquote.
Yeah, and that last sentence, many of you might be familiar with, which Connor Friedersdorf lifted directly from one of our friends. Mm-hmm. Conservatism cannot fail. It can only be failed. It's from the inimitable Digby over at Digby's Hullabaloo at her blog, and she did that in 2006.
That was the same time that you were coining the phrase dumpster fire, Driftglass.
It was. And I have a little thing here on my desk that someone sent me, and we'll talk about it at greater length when we're not pressed for time like this, that I really adore. And they made it up just for me, and it looks great, and I'll take photographs of it with my smiling face next to it. It's really sweet. Yeah, no, 2006, we were all writing this stuff back in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And you can transpose the name Trump on top of this instead of Limbaugh, and it says exactly the same thing.
Right.
Yes, some people are doing it just because it's good business and because they feel they have to, and there's no money to be made outside of that circle. But a lot of them are really pro-Trump. It was true all along. That's the point we keep making. It's this artificial barrier that's been put up over the year 2016. Says you're not allowed to talk about anything before that because then we all look bad. Then all of us good people look all bad. Well, if you weren't familiar with the phrase, it was a riff on an old Marxist adage that communism cannot fail. Communism can only be failed, which is why in 2011, young Connor Friedersdorf trying to persuade conservative journalists to side against filth like Limbaugh was frankly already a fool's errand. By then, the base was already zombified, racist husks who call themselves MAGA now, but that they were back then the fake Tea Party. And before that, they were ride or die W voters and Fox News junkies and big fans of Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity. Big fans of Glenn Beck.
Yeah, it was an absolute cult for Glenn Beck after 9/11. Yeah.
And the real problem with Glenn Beck saying, the real problem with Obama is I think he hates white people.
Yeah.
It was straight fucking racism. And all the serious journalists, all the conservative journalists couldn't form their mouth to say that word. Could not bring themselves to say the movement is riddled with racists. The Republican Party is 80% fucking racist. And we've been lying about it all along because we want to win elections. So they just kept pretending that wasn't really happening. And before that, they were dumbing themselves down, listening to Limbaugh and all of his fucking imitators. And now we've come to the lethal end of that very long, very toxic road. Now consider this from Vox. I'm sure most of you remember this. This is from August 24th, 2020. Quote, why Republicans didn't write a platform for the convention this year. The party's true priority is supporting Donald Trump. Yeah. Back in June, the party made the decision to skip platform drafting entirely and just reuse the 2016 document, citing the pandemic as a reason. It's unclear if this was done deliberately to avoid messy party infighting over the platform, but it certainly had that effect. After all, it would have been possible to draft a platform virtually, using the fucking internet. Democrats did just so. Republicans weren't prevented from doing the same, but they chose not to bother. Instead of policy, the RNC's brief resolution on the topic repeatedly cites one major organizing principle the Republican Party will adhere to for the next 4 years: support of Donald Trump, period, unquote. Yeah. That's it, whatever he wants.
I feel like that is at the absolute low point of the Republican Party.
Yep. Well,
I mean,
they've hit lower points since.
As an institution. And of course, the 2016 platform, Trump had the entire campaign had no interest in any of it except the Ukraine platform, which
Right, that was it.
changed to make Putin happy.
That's right. That's all they cared about was the Ukraine platform. And again, to repeat, for those of you in the back who weren't hearing correctly, Trump did not hustle and scratch and bribe and kick his way to the nomination in 2016. He was welcomed by the Republican Party. He didn't hijack the party. They gave the party to him.
Right.
They loved him. He swept past every other candidate with ease and locked up the nomination early because he was the prince who was promised. He was the one they were waiting for. And they've been waiting for him for a long time.
And he had the great Bush off machine.
He did.
Because he was willing to say Bush didn't keep us safe.
Right. Bush lied us into the wrong war.
Right.
It wasn't your fault, you dumbasses who voted for him over and over again and who supported him completely. You are not to blame. I absolve you by the power vested in me of all guilt for the Iraq War. It was him. It was his brother, that Jeb Bush's brother, that asshole. That he did it to you, not us, not you. You're not to blame for anything. You're never to blame for anything.
Yep. It was going to be Jeb Bush and Scott Walker.
Yep.
And the party elite deciding that.
Yeah. Well,
really misread the base. Really didn't know their own voters.
And this really is kind of, it doesn't need to be a final proof because it's already been proven a million times. But this really does scream how completely out of touch the people who now are never Trumpers and now dominate the media were completely out of touch with their own party, had no fucking idea what was going on below the hood, had no, or just didn't want to look, didn't want to acknowledge what they had, the monster they'd created. But the only people who actually were right from the beginning were the people who they don't want anywhere near them at a microphone, which is sad and ironic. And I've repeated that now 1,000 times, and you'll hear it 1,000 times more, but it's just true. And it is, I don't care personally. It doesn't do anything for me personally, but it is insane to take the people who actually knew what they were talking about in the middle of this incredibly dangerous constitutional crisis and say, we don't want you telling us what you know about this situation. We would just prefer to diagnose the problem based on a cursory knowledge of a situation that we knew, that we refused to acknowledge existed until 5 minutes ago. That's nuts. That's just fucking nuts. Anyway,
also money, please.
Yeah, money. Shmoney, please. Yeah.
And consider this from the New Republic just yesterday.
Yeah.
Quote, Trump Education Secretary offers chilling warning to universities. Education Secretary Linda McMahon is threatening to withhold federal funding from universities that don't align themselves with Donald Trump's administration. Universities should continue to be able to do research as long as they're abiding by the laws and are in sync, I think, with the administration and what the administration is trying to accomplish, but primarily abiding by the laws, McMahon said, unquote. Whatever pedants and Pollyannas want to believe that conservatism once meant, or the Republican Party once stood for, once the overwhelming majority of conservatives and Republicans went along with the turning the pillars of these institutions into whatever Trump wants, the motto of this fascist movement stopped being conservatism cannot fail, conservatism can only be failed, and became Trump cannot fail. Trump can only be failed. I am the party.
Yep. I am. Yeah, exactly. I am the party. And now it's a world of demigods and scapegoats. That's all it is.
Yep. And as a malignant narcissist with mental decline, leading a party of reprogrammable meatbags, this all makes perfect sense because Trump never admits to making a mistake. He's never responsible for anything bad. And the base is always ready and eager to find scapegoats that are not Trump for their own incompetence and failure.
And so when we talk about, and you and I do talk about this offline, believe it or not,
a lot,
because this is our country, and we're scared what's happening to it, and we want to figure out a way to fix it and contribute in some small way to the repair that Republicans have done to the country, the damage they've done to the country, and the question is always, well, how do you reach these people? And the answer is you don't, man. You don't. These people have already decided that nothing Trump does is bad or wrong. They will accept any lie. The whole tariff thing, reverse, re-reverse, that's just the art of the deal, baby. That's just something,
right.
He's just playing four-dimensional Chinese checkers. He knows what the hell he's doing. And so it's vitally important for our party moving forward to understand that you can please stop wasting your time trying to reach Republicans. You can't. They have, going back decades, their pillar of their party was, we hate liberals and don't trust anything they say. They've repeated that a million times. They're gone to us. They're lost to us, which is a great tragedy. And I'm sure in 1,000 years, people will look back and say that was really awful. But we're living in the middle of it right now. So it's not just a tragedy.
You said earlier today, you were talking about, and you sounded a lot like Rachel Bitecofer. You're talking about, negative partisanship.
Yeah.
That Donald Trump has murdered more Americans and killed people around the world with his policies
than Stalin.
Yeah. And hammer and hammer and hammer. And the point is not to get Trumpers to go, oh gosh, I've made a terrible mistake.
No, that'll never
happen. We're
happen.
not ever counting on that.
No.
But to inflame, and I mean that sincerely, inflame the conversation to the point where people who stay home don't stay home.
Right.
And I said on Bob Cesca yesterday, and thank you, Bob Cesca, for having us on. It's always a hoot. If you haven't heard that episode, you need to go hear about the hamburger from heaven. That's all I'm going to say. But the idea that you're going to get non-voters to vote, right? We have seen that. As I said to Bob Cesca, what happened to the abortion issue?
Right. Gone.
The abortion issue is driving young women to the polls.
Mm-hmm.
And it flipped a Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Because young women went to vote who don't think highly of their own opinion, a lot of them. Some do. But a lot of them don't think of themselves as political people. And all of a sudden, politics found them.
Uh-huh.
And, and we need more of that. We need more of highlighting just how bad things are and how it affects your life personally.
Yeah. Loudly. And we all, I said we need a Trump body count clock.
Yeah.
That runs in the corner of every news broadcast from every platform, from Free Speech TV to MSNBC to CNN. Anybody who's not completely controlled by the Trump body count, just running constantly. How many people has Trump killed in the last 8 years?
And again, what I said yesterday on Bob Cesca about how in each of these states that have a Republican senator, how many nursing home patients will be kicked out on the street in that state by the end of Medicaid, by cutting Medicaid down to the bone.
No. How many Medicaid patients in this state has Trump kicked out of a nursing home?
Yeah, there you go.
Just because I hate to say it, you got to keep it to 7 words.
How Republicans have done it. Well, and someone said that on Blue Sky today. These Medicaid cuts don't happen until 2029.
Yeah,
and then it's the next Biden's fault.
Right. Of course it is. No, they're not. Somebody's not stupid enough to do this right now, but it will fall right now. There will be people denied Medicaid, and this is going to screw people up in the immediate future, no matter what happens.
Yeah,
and trying to reconcile what one half of the Republican Party wants with what the other half wants is an impossible task. So you're going to get something bloody and stitched together and ugly and awful. But nobody who doesn't vote is going to pay any attention to any of that.
Right.
They're not smart enough, or they're not literate enough, or they're just too goddamn lazy to pay any attention to any of that. So you have to get their attention, and you have to get their attention by putting on a show, and the show has to involve blood and sex, and corruption. That gets people's attention. Whatever the fuck works on soap operas works in politics.
The airplane got to the point where Trump's complaining about it's too big.
Yeah. Well,
18 feet is longer is too big. Yeah.
It's too big. That's never been your problem, little man. Never been your problem.
Seriously.
But when inevitably reporters think they're clever and say, well, what do you say when people say, go after the reporter?
Yeah.
Drop a house on him. And just
who said that? Right.
Yeah, put on a Trump mask when the candidate is asked, well, how can you say that Trump did thus and so? And what network do you work for again? Oh, yeah. That's why your ratings are so low, because you're stupid. They hire stupid people. Go after them. It works. It works. I hate that it works. Believe me, I fucking hate that it works. I want everything to be the McNeil Lehrer News Hour.
Right.
I want PBS to be Carl Sagan.
Robert McNeil. Rest in peace. But yeah.
It's not. It's not that. And we got to keep pretending that that's still a thing. What you need to do is when the reporter asks anything other than a softball question of the candidate, rip their fucking throat out. And you know what? Because
I hate to say it, Dirk Glass, but this is the thing, is it's not going to happen that way. I am absolutely convinced deep in my soul that the trauma of having Trump as president is going to be erased as fast as January 6th.
Oh, I completely agree.
And COVID.
Yeah.
And they're just going to be, don't ever mention it again, because we don't do that.
But until January 6th, or the hamburger from heaven, arrives ahead of schedule, he's still going to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
So I'm not, after January 6th, I'm not worried about 2029. I'm not worried about reforming or rebuilding or infrastructure, anything. I'm worried about getting some people into office who can stick a lever under the Republican Party and pry them loose from around the throat of the American people. Just a sliver of something, just a house, just enough house seats to do it. And the way you do that is by unrelentingly attacking Republicans for what they actually are. They are fascists, they're cruel, they're sadists. And
racist.
And racist. And since people hate us for using big words anyway, go ahead and use all your big words. Really exercise yourself. I had a Russian novel teacher who told me that Americans' cursing compared to Russian cursing is as the babbling of little children. He said, what's the worst you have in your culture? It's motherfucker. Yes, motherfucker. He says, it is as the babbling of little children compared to Russian swearing.
Yeah.
So exercise yourself. Use all your big words and go after every Republican who pops their head above the surface, and any reporter who asks you about, why are you, no. And again, it kills me that this works. It kills me that being the good guy, the responsible guy, the person who's got good policies, who just wants to help America and wants to be joyful about it. We had two people like that. They were Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris.
Yep.
And it didn't work. So what works? What works is going after using our superior intelligence and vocabulary to go after these people as hard and ruthlessly and brutally and every fucking day as possible. Make them sorry they got out of bed today.
Yep.
Every day. And then after we've done what Sherman did to the South in terms of politics, then we'll worry about rebuilding the country and making it a nice place to live. Shall we do a news roundup, baby?
Sure. Trump admitted that tariffs will increase prices for American consumers.
What?
Quote, sometimes the country will eat it, sometimes Walmart will eat it, and sometimes there will be something to pay, something extra. They have to take out some of their profits, unquote.
Yeah.
And the meatheads will overlook Trump's obvious lies and failures because Trump cannot fail, or the whole thing might be moot because...
Yeah, because from Reuters today, quote, U.S. court blocks most of Trump's tariffs, says president exceeded his authority. Oh, no. A U.S. trade court blocked most of President Trump's tariffs in a sweeping ruling on Wednesday that found the president overstepped his authority by imposing across-the-board duties on imports from U.S. trading partners. The Court of International Trade said the U.S. Constitution gives Congress exclusive authority to regulate commerce with other countries that is not overridden by the president's emergency powers to safeguard the U.S. economy. The court does not pass on the wisdom or likely effectiveness of the president's use of tariffs as leverage, a 3-judge panel said in the decision to issue a permanent injunction on the blanket tariff orders issued by Trump since January. That use is impermissible, not because it is unwise or ineffective, but because federal law does not allow it.
Period.
Financial markets cheered the ruling. The U.S. dollar rallied following the court's order, surging against currencies such as the euro, yen, and Swiss franc in particular. Wall Street futures rose and equities across Asia also jumped, unquote. But in breaking news, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit has temporarily reinstated Trump's tariffs, pausing a lower court's ruling that had blocked them while the case is on appeal. Because you know how markets love uncertainty.
Yeah.
Just hitting the defibrillator randomly, whether you need it or not.
Whether you need it or not.
And never knowing from one minute to the next who's going to do what because these fuckers are in charge.
Yep.
And it's time for the people who think that President Soft Taco is Soft Taco to express their unhappiness with his rule
Right.
by making life miserable for Republicans.
And we don't have this in here, but Pam Bondi deciding that the American Bar Association can no longer rule on judges or pass a report card onto Congress about judicial appointments.
Yeah.
Because all their judicial appointments suck.
Yeah, because they're all a joke. Yeah.
So we're just not going to have a report card because we always get Fs. So no more report cards, okay?
That's the way Trump wanted to deal with COVID. If you don't measure something, then it's not happening.
Yeah. Don't let anybody in, and that'll make my numbers go up. I don't want that. So, yeah. In other news, President Soft Taco is having more bad luck in court this week. From the New Republic, May 28th, 2025. Quote, the president's attack on big law is so outrageous that it's made at least one judge raise his voice on paper. I want to read this whole thing.
Go for it.
The decision. U.S. District Judge for the District of Columbia, Richard Leon, struck down Donald Trump's executive order targeting law firm Wilmer Hale on Tuesday, describing the entire directive as unconstitutional. In a 73-page opinion, Leon took the time to explain the principles of democracy to the president. That's adorable. Illustrating how his political retribution campaign is quintessentially antithetical to the foundational principles of the U.S. government.
See, now he's just insulting.
He's writing for posterity. Yeah.
He's just insulting, ordinary, normal Americans by using big words like quintessentially and antithetical.
Well, here's some more big words. The cornerstone of the American system of justice is an independent judiciary and an independent bar willing to tackle unpopular cases, however daunting. The founding fathers knew this! Exclamation point. Leon wrote. Accordingly, they took pains to enshrine in the Constitution certain rights that would serve as the foundation for that independence. Little wonder that in the nearly 250 years since the Constitution was adopted, no executive order has been issued challenging these fundamental rights. Now, however, several executive orders have been issued directly challenging these rights and that independence, Leon continued. One of these orders is the subject of this case. For the reasons set forth below, I have concluded that this order must be struck down in its entirety as unconstitutional. Indeed, to rule otherwise would be unfaithful to the judgment and vision of the founding fathers! Exclamation point. It is highly unusual for judges to use even one exclamation point in their rulings. Leon used a total of 26, unquote. I got to read that 73-page opinion.
A little light reading.
There's some good history in there. No, I think high school students should be assigned that.
I think we should read it aloud on this podcast.
Constitution test, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, young Jimmy, in paragraph 24 on page 71, what does Judge Leon have to say about Donald Trump's ass? Do
I have to read that? Yes, you do.
In moot courts, this is what we talked about. And even the Wall Street Journal is now feeling its oats. Quote, the Trump administration has frozen billions in federal grants to Harvard University, which you already know, threatened its tax-exempt status, and sought to dictate its curriculum and hiring. Now the government seems bent on destroying the school for the offense of fighting back. Because, no fair punching back, Blue Gal. And for what purpose? That's how we read the Department of Homeland Security's move Thursday to bar foreign students from attending the world-renowned institution. That's 6,800 students, or a quarter of Harvard's student body, whose futures are suddenly in disarray. It's also a short-sighted attack on one of America's greatest competitive strengths, its ability to attract the world's best and brightest. This will be terribly damaging to America's ability to attract talented young people who bring their enterprise and intellectual capital to the U.S. Non-citizens account for more than half of doctoral degrees in AI-related fields in 2022. Many have gone on to work at U.S. companies like NVIDIA or started their own. The National Foundation for American Policy finds that, quote, immigrants have founded or co-founded nearly 2/3 of the top AI companies in the United States, and 70% of full-time graduate students in fields related to artificial intelligence are international students. Immigrants have also started more than half of America's privately held startups, valued at $1 billion or more. Even if it's modified, Ms. Noam's order will echo around the world as a signal the U.S. is no longer open to educate the world's brightest young people. This is the one that's going to kill us if it's not undone.
Yeah.
Foreign students will get the message and take their talents elsewhere. China's Politburo must be laughing at their good luck that their main adversary is hamstringing itself, first with tariffs that make its firms less competitive, and now with an assault on immigrant talent, unquote.
Trump is turning this country into a scared old lady who lives on our street and peeks out her back window all day long, waiting to see if a black person is going to walk down the alley.
Yeah. Well, that's what
America under Trump.
And I will not let, for our part, we will not let Donald Trump, to the best of our abilities, turn America into MAGA. Because MAGA are scared old ladies who are hiding in the corner, terrified of everything that they don't understand, and willing to blame immigrants and the poor people and liberals and for their gone to shit lives.
National Public Radio filed a First Amendment lawsuit against the Trump administration, alleging that the president's order telling the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to defund NPR is a clear violation of the Constitution. The lawsuit says Trump's order violates both the expressed will of Congress and the First Amendment's bedrock guarantees of freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of association. Moreover, it threatens the existence of a public radio system that millions of Americans across the country rely on for vital news and information, unquote.
Yeah. So Trump's revenge and retribution tour is hitting some snags, but things are going well with his other main gig, which is extortion and bribery. Those are working out great. First, the extortion. Let's take that up from the Wrap. Quote, President Donald Trump has shut down a $15 million offer from Paramount Global, shame on them, to settle his $20 billion lawsuit against NBC News, according to the Wall Street Journal. The lawsuit stems from CBS's 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris last fall, which the president claims was deceitfully edited. Bullshit. Trump is asking for $25 million to settle and an apology from the news network, the Wall Street Journal reports. The two parties have reportedly discussed a tentative mediation session for Thursday. Paramount shares were trading flat in after-hours trading after Wall Street Journal report. The lawsuit and Paramount's handling of it has led to mass exodus of top members at 60 Minutes and CBS. Executive producer Bill Owens resigned from his 60 Minutes role in April. He said in a memo to the staff that he lost the ability to make independent decisions. Wendy McMahon, a longtime defender of 60 Minutes, also stepped down as president of CBS News and Stations among the tumult caused by the lawsuit. She said in a memo, quote, it's become clear the company and I do not agree on the path forward, according to the New York Times, unquote. The Daily Beast reported today that Trump's lawyers, in rejecting the $15 million settlement, claimed the, quote, mental anguish of CBS's deception was just too much to bear.
You know, I think that the mental anguish of Fox News' deception is too much to bear.
Yeah.
And we should do a class action lawsuit for $20 billion.
Oh, no. $100 trillion.
$100 trillion
$100 trillion
against Fox.
Yeah. Or we'll take certain people's heads on pikes as a, as a gesture.
Then comes the bribery from ABC News. I mean, back up a minute. Anything that happens here with CBS Paramount is precedent for how we handle Fox.
Right.
Like you said, put a Trump mask on and say, I'm going after Fox News.
Yeah.
And I want discovery.
Oh, no.
I want internal documents from Fox News and how they plan their day.
And go after their corporate holdings.
Yeah.
Bust them up.
Yeah.
Take them.
News Corp.
News Corp away
You're
from
a monopoly.
Them. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'd like to see some documentation from Sinclair, too.
Yeah.
Because we can prove that they provide scripts to every local news station covering the news.
I think maybe Harvard would be willing to provide pro bono legal work on this in this regard. Lots and lots of it.
Yeah. Then comes the bribery from ABC News. Quote, Trump to pardon reality stars Todd and Julie Chrisley, the reality TV series stars, who, by the way, are now going to have reality TV again.
Yeah.
Because they have no other talent. They were convicted of tax evasion and bank fraud. Their daughter, Savannah Chrisley, appealed to the Trump administration for pardons for her parents and spoke at the 2024 Republican National Convention.
Yeah.
Unquote.
Yeah. Imagine the sad abandoned pet commercial music playing under this this poor girl. My parents are just criminals and felons. They should be released, along with the J6 traitors. This is from the Associated Press, quote, former Connecticut Governor John Rowland, whose promising political career was upended by a corruption scandal and 2 federal prison stints. Oh, 2 federal stints. Good for you, man. Swing for the fences. Has been pardoned by President Donald Trump. A White House official confirmed the pardon, but spoke only on background to discuss matters that had not yet been made public. Rowland served 10 months in a federal prison camp after pleading guilty in 2004 to 1 count of conspiracy to steal honest services. You know, betraying the public, that sort of thing. It was a stunning fall from grace from a man who was once considered a rising star in the national Republican politics. The Waterbury native served 3 terms in Congress, was chairman of the National Republican Governors Association, and a friend of former President George H.W. Bush. He was elected governor in 1994 at the age of 37. After finishing his prison sentence, Rowland found new life as a popular AM radio commentator.
Oh my God, he's Charlie Sykes of Connecticut.
Yeah, of course, they all find a second life as someone on the radio calling liberals traitorous, baby-killing scum.
Right.
But back to the article. But in 2014, oh no, he was convicted of conspiring to hide his work on political campaigns and was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison again. Unquote.
Wow, we could go after Hannity for that too.
Yeah,
practically the campaign director of Trump 2024.
Oh, there's so much we could go after people, and I think Merrick Garland is not going to find a place in the new administration.
No, this is where Rahm Emanuel would come in handy, actually.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Somebody that mean.
I want a mean son of a bitch. I want a bulldog.
Yeah.
I want a bulldog who's like, no, these people are criminals, and my job is to put them in prison for as long as humanly possible.
Yep.
My job is to find out if they are criminals, because we know they are, because they did it all out in the open.
Right. Betraying the public trust. And from Rolling Stone, May 27th, 2025, quote, Trump pardons criminal whose mom attended Mar-a-Lago fundraiser. The president's pardon of tax cheat Paul Walzak comes after his mother attended the $1 million per head event, the New York Times reports. Donald Trump pardoned a former nursing home executive who pleaded guilty to tax evasion weeks after his socialite mother attended a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago where attendees had to pay $1 million each, the New York Times reported today. Paul Walzak, who was convicted of not paying more than $10.9 million in taxes to fund his lavish lifestyle, was sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay $4.4 million in restitution last month. He submitted an application for a pardon around Election Day, having pleaded guilty in November 2024, but so like 3 days apart, I would guess.
Yeah.
Right? He had not had any success with his application, even as Trump pardoned other MAGA supporters. Then, Walzak's mother, Elizabeth Fago, was invited to a candlelight fundraising dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Okay, so it's a fundraiser. I assume it's for the kids, though, right?
It's for the kids.
Animals and
sure.
Unfortunate children who don't have Mar-a-Lago memberships.
Yeah.
According to the invitation, Trump appeared as a guest speaker at the event, so he was being nice for the kids, too.
That's right. He was doing balloon animals.
Donating his time to help this charity event, fundraiser.
He was doing magic tricks. Hey, kids, want to see your money all disappear? Want to see your future disappear?
Yeah, it's for the kids, know. No, the event was hosted by MAGA Incorporated, a super PAC that can raise unlimited funds for Trump.
For the kids. For the kids.
Less than 3 weeks after the dinner, Trump pardoned Walzak.
You got to wait 3 weeks. You got to wait at least 3 weeks so no one will suspect.
Yeah, 3 weeks. Then everybody forgets.
No one will suspect.
She paid $1 million through a super PAC.
Yeah, and this is what, isn't this what Giuliani offered to do? Be the broker for pardons? Give me a lot of money.
You get $1 million and I get $1 million for each one.
Give me a shitload of money. I'll give you half and you give pardons because you have an unlimited ability to do that. And clearly that's what he's doing.
Yeah. And that's what Jared Kushner was doing, too, for the last 2 months of the administration last time.
Sell them pardons, man.
Yeah.
And, of course, we learned with the January 6th traitors and terrorists, the pardon power is also very useful to Trump in recruiting and building his own private army of violent goons. This is from the Detroit News. The headline, quote, President Donald Trump said Wednesday he would take a look at pardoning 2 men convicted of conspiring to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in 2020. Jesus Christ. Barry Croft Jr. and Adam Fox were portrayed by federal prosecutors as the leaders of anti-government extremists who wanted to grab Whitmer, a Democrat, at her vacation home and start a civil war. That used to be illegal. A revelation made in October of 2020 during the stretch run of the election between Trump and Democratic challenger Joe Biden. Croft, 49, and Fox, 42, were convicted of conspiracy in federal court in Grand Rapids in 2022. Croft, a trucker from Delaware, was also found guilty of a weapons charge. I will take a look at it. It's been brought to my attention, Trump told a Detroit News reporter in the Oval Office. The president added that, quote, a lot of people from both sides are asking him about potential pardons for the men, unquote. Hey, look, honey, it's both sides. Both sides out there in the wild.
I want to know
exciting?
the Democrat that asked them to look into that. That's bullshit.
Is it Gretchen Whitmer? Does she feel like maybe she dressed too provocatively and provoked them to do this thing? No. Anyway, do you remember? I'm sure you don't, honey, because it comes from a tainted source that you despise. But some of us might recall the good old days when a fictional Democratic president would have a crisis of conscience over whether or not to commute someone's sentence from the death penalty to life in prison.
I want you to know that I had a number of people on my staff search for a reason the public would find palatable to commute the sentence. Technicality. Any evidence of racism.
So your staff spent the weekend looking for a way out?
Yeah.
Like the kid in the right field who doesn't want the ball to get hit to him.
I'm the leader of a democracy, Tom. 71% of the people support capital punishment. People have spoken. The courts have spoken.
Did you call the Pope?
Yeah.
And how do you do that?
Oh, for crying out loud, Tom. I open my mouth and say, somebody get me the Pope.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President, but I was thinking, you're just this kid from my parish, and now you're calling the Pope.
Anyway, I looked for a way out. I really did.
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. You know what that means? God is the only one who gets to kill people.
I know.
That was your way out.
Yeah, that's your one.
Yeah.
From the West Wing.
I get one. I have revised my opinion of the show based on your criticism, which I think is entirely valid, but it's still full of really good quotes.
It is.
Which I think are useful and in dark times like this.
Examples. Yes, I got you. I got you. It's still porn for liberals. And it bends reality and our perceptions of what's possible.
So it's good porn.
Anyway,
it's excellent porn, you're saying.
USA Today asks, quote, is Trump in mental decline? He sounds far worse than Biden ever did. Trump seems to know little. He has grown increasingly incoherent and rambling, often wholly detached from reality. Unquote. We couldn't agree more.
Holy detachment, Batman. Yeah, it's out there in the open, but in what is undoubtedly the top news story this week. Number one with a bullet. Put everything else in the rearview mirror because this one is the big one. It's up there with man landing on the fucking moon.
No, it isn't, but it's pretty significant.
Someone taped a mean note to Chris Cillizza's Tesla that said Musk is a Nazi. Taped it, didn't etch it into there, just taped a little note saying Musk is a Nazi to his Tesla. To his mind, this was defacing his Tesla. Practically a terrorist attack when you really think about it, you know. So he spent an entire podcast bitching about why make everything political is dumb and why it's driving us further and further apart. You know, both sides. It's such a shame how far we're being driven apart because everything in political is now dumb and both sides blah, blah, blah. And, you know, in my opinion, not since Susan Collins called the cops on a small group of protesters chalking the sidewalk in front of her house to ask her to please stop Roe versus Wade from being gutted. And not since Tucker Carlson turned a few jokesters playing the tambourine outside his house into an attempted terrorist home invasion right out of the movie Taken has a lone hero of American democracy been so terribly threatened and shown such undaunted courage under fire. We salute you, Mr. Cillizza. We salute you.
That taped note on your car.
Yeah.
In other Chris Cillizza news, I can't believe we have other Chris Cillizza news.
Oh, yeah.
Cillizza is now risking the destruction of the space-time continuum by doing the thing that you're not supposed to do, Driftglass.
There's something very important I forgot to tell you.
What?
Don't cross the streams.
Why?
It would be bad.
I'm fuzzy on the whole good-bad thing. What do you mean bad?
Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal. All right, that's bad. Okay. All right, important safety tip. Thanks, Egon.
And how exactly did Chris Cillizza cross the streams?
He is Chuck Todd. I remain Chris Cillizza.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, Blue Gal. This is not a one-off.
What?
Yeah. Chuck Todd is now...
I thought that Chuck Todd was a special guest.
He is special in a very special way.
Yeah.
But he is a weekly feature on the Chris Cillizza podcast. Yes, it's true.
I can't believe Chuck Todd has the time for that.
He's so busy. He has got so many other better things to do with his time. But yeah, he carves time out of his busy schedule to once a week show up on Chris Cillizza's...
Once a week with Chris Cillizza.
So now, what's the name of his podcast again?
His Substack is called So What?
Oh, so his podcast is called Who Cares? So that makes
Who
fucking
cares
sense.
with Chuck Todd?
Yeah.
Hey, each week we post to our Patreon page and website an internet kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week, however, our internet kitty is Peep.
Peep.
And Peep's human is a high school friend of Middle Child. And therefore, Peep is basically a member of our family.
Of course.
Yes, it's the rules. We don't make them up.
No.
Peep is a sweet little girl. And, of course, as a member of our family, Peep only eats freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve Pet Store Perfection or Dollar Store Direct, your cat will sit on the kitchen floor and say, I'm family.
I'm family here. I'm family.
I'm family. So the food I eat is only freshly poured.
Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured.
And you can visit Peep, she is a lovely kitty, at our Patreon page or website, and you can send your internet kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. If you are sending us an internet kitty or other pet, please make the subject line of your email internet kitty, singular. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go Postal Unions! Letter on the air unless you say otherwise.
And at the risk of repeating myself, do not forget our gourmet coffee guidelines for all you new listeners out there. And by the way, we're getting a few new listeners every week or so. Every couple of weeks, is again organically growing this podcast. It is not an upsweeping curve, but it's a steady growth line, and we do appreciate that very much. And it's because you guys are spreading the word, and we do appreciate that. So, if you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our job. It's a labor of love, but it is also our job. So you can spare $5 a month, can't you? I'm sure you can. Or more if you can. Please spare $5 a month or more if you can at patreon.com/proleftpod. Please also share our show on social media. Let people know we're out there and let them know that they can listen to us for free. And thank you for doing that.
And we've had a couple people who've seen something on social media that made them mad.
Right.
Like both-siderism or defending Trump or saying, yeah, but to something Trump did.
Yeah.
And they reply with, the professional left doesn't let you get away with this. You should go listen to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. And I mean, we made fun of pedants in our podcast today, but we are that way too about certain issues. Because as you may have noticed with the administration of Donald Trump, repetition actually works.
Yes, it does.
And so telling people once or twice that both sides doesn't work. Telling them 5,000 times over the course of 15 years actually works. And it makes people feel like, oh, that's right. And they start looking for it in the media. And when they find it, they start calling it out. So that sort of thing does work. And we are boring and repetitive, and we know that on certain subjects, but it's because we really think those subjects need to be highlighted and attacked and dissected whenever you find them. We can only do so much. We rely on you for so very much when it comes to spreading the word about what's right and what's wrong and how to think about this administration.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties are warning you right now that if the networks bring back Chris Cillizza,
there will be trouble.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the loving, lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.